We mentioned anything that happened before he came to the tree and was made a messenger. Anything that happened before that time that seems to be a part of his upbringing. So again, his modesty. You know that he was very modest with the women, that he was hardworking, that he had faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he believed in helping others, and that helping others is a way of pleasing Allah. These are things he did before he was a messenger. Before he received revelation, they were things he was already doing, which indicate to us that that was probably a part of his upbringing, which again is from Allah's blessings upon him. And so where we are, we've gone over the context of his upbringing and some of the context in terms of the history of Banu Israel. We looked at some of those family values, so now we want to look at his early life as an infant, which really means we're not going to be talking about him so much. We're talking about his very early life as an infant. And we're really going to be talking about who? His mother. Yeah, we're talking about his mother, because it's not really anything of significance he did during that time. So, taking from our brother Tahir, we'll begin with some questions. Hopefully by the end of the lesson we can have the answers to them. They say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, inshallah. So some of the points we want to ponder. Number one, from where does Musa's mother earn a special place with Allah? And what makes her special that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even mentions her story and talks about how he honored her? That's one of our questions. Number two, what is the significance of Surah Al-Qasas as it relates to Musa's entire life? And what is one of its important themes? Number three, what do we learn from Musa's infancy about Allah's help and how Allah works? Number four, why does Musa need to hear the story of his infancy if he already knows it? Allah tells him his own story. So he knows his story. So why does Allah tell him his own story? And number five, what are the larger implications of the story of Musa's infancy for the community of Muslim Americans and Muslims at large? Okay, so see, these are some of the questions that we hope in the limited time that we have that we can attempt to answer them, inshallah. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do, okay, the two primary places where we're going to hear about Musa alayhi salam's infancy are in two main surahs. They are Surah Al-Qasas, which is chapter number 28 of the Quran, and Surah Taha, chapter number 20 of the Quran. When we talk about Musa as an infant, his infancy, those are the two sources that we go to. Now I want you to read these two ayat, one from Surah Al-Qasas and one from Surah Taha, both talking about the same event. But what's the difference in style? What's the difference in style between the two ayat? Okay, I'll read them for us. And we inspired to the mother of Musa, suckle him. But when you fear for him, wa alaikum salam, cast him into the river, and do not fear and do not grieve. Indeed, we will return him to you, and we will make him one of the messengers. Okay? The second one from Surah Taha, and we had already conferred favor upon you another time, when we inspired to your mother what we inspired. What's the difference in style between those two ayat?
One is an affirmation. The second, affirmation.
One is an affirmation. Not quite what I'm looking for.
First were specifics.
Okay, yes, definitely Surah Al-Qasas is a lot more specific than Surah Taha. It gives a lot more detail about his infancy. But what else is different in style? Yes.
The second one, Surah Taha, is talking about refuge.
Right, very good. So in Surah Taha, Allah is talking to Musa about his own life story. Whereas in Surah Al-Qasas, he's talking about the story of Musa in general to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay? Which is, again, two different styles, two different approaches, but they both have their benefits. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Musa about his own story, notice what he says. He says, and we had already conferred favor upon you another time. Which means that there's a favor right now that he's talking about. What did Musa ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for when Allah made him a messenger? Help. From who? His brother. Right. So after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Taha, after he grants Musa's request for help, he tells him, and we also did something else for you when we revealed to your mother what we revealed. What's the significance of that? And he, after giving him his brother as help, as he requested, he said, Allah, I need my brother to help me pray, to help me remember. He's more eloquent than me. He said, I'm granting you your request. And then he said, and we helped you out another time before that. What's the significance of Allah telling him that? Yeah.
We've always been there with you.
Right. We took care of you and supported you and gave you help when you didn't ask for it. But we knew that you needed it. And so now that you ask for it, do you think that we're going to deny you? And this is the same thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What he says? وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. And your Lord will give you and you will be pleased. And then what does he say? أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى. Didn't he find you an orphan and take you in? And find you poor and enrich you? And so just like he took care of you before you called on him, he's going to take care of you when you ask him. And even when you don't ask him. So again, the same message that he gave to Musa alayhi salam, he also gives to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And so in Surah Al-Qasas, he talks about the conversation he had with Musa. In Surah Taha. And in Surah Al-Qasas, he's just telling the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam the details of the story. Again, reminder that as you mentioned, we've always been here for you. So don't think that at this moment we won't be there for you. Now, it says, and we inspired to the mother of Musa, suckle him, and he nursed him. But when you fear for him, cast him into the river, and do not fear and do not grieve. Indeed, we will return him to you and make him one of the messengers. What was she inspired or informed to do first? To suckle him. Now, I want you to think about Musa's mother's situation. What's going on in Egypt right now? They were killing the babies. Very good. And so what might seem odd about the command to nurse, or about nursing him in general?
They were coming to get my baby.
Right. And so if they're going to kill him, then there's no need to suckle him. But what happens to the baby, whether he's taken by the guards, whether he's killed or whatnot, is that in her control or outside of her control? Outside of her control. Suckling him is inside of her control or outside of her control? Inside of her control. And so this is the idea. We cannot be concerned with what Allah is going to do and allow to happen. We have a responsibility. And so we don't do or not do what we're supposed to do. We don't do it or neglect it based upon what we think Allah is going to let happen. Well, I don't need to do it because it's not going to be any benefit anyway. No, it's a benefit because Allah told you to do it. And so whether you see the positive outcome or don't see it, that's not in your hands. What's in your hands is your duty. She doesn't know what's going to happen to her baby. But while that baby is under her care, she has a responsibility to suckle it. And so that's the first thing. Worry about yourself and your obligations. Don't worry about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to do. When we talk about the 7 habits of highly effective people, and the book definitely has holes in it. It has issues that need to be addressed and looked at from an Islamic perspective. But one of the things that he does mention that also has some textual basis is that people have a circle of control and a circle of influence. The circle of control are things that you have direct and immediate control over doing. The circle of influence are the things that are outside of your control that your actions cannot change. He says one of the habits of highly effective people is that they focus on the circle of control, the things that they can do and can change, and don't focus on the things outside of your control because they're outside of your control. And you don't focus about what Allah is going to do and how He's going to do it. Focus on what you have to do. And this is found in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said, "Min husni Islam al-mar'i tarkuhu ma la ya'ni." From excellence in Islam is to leave off what does not concern you. What Allah is going to do and how He's going to do it and how He's going to make a way out and how this is going to work, that's Allah's business, not ours. And so we leave off what Allah is going to do and we focus on what we have to do, and Allah will take care of all of it. And so the first command to her was, fulfill your responsibility. Suckle the baby. He needs to be fed. And then after that, what does he say? He says, and then when you're afraid for his life, so first suckle it, your first responsibility. Then when you're afraid for his life, cast him into the river. And don't be afraid and don't mourn. We're going to bring him back to you and we will make him a messenger. And we mentioned last time that because he mentions making him a messenger, that from the opinions is that she had a dream. From the opinions out there as well as that an angel came to her, but that she's still not a prophet. Under any circumstances, she was informed in a way that she had confidence that it was from Allah, that not only would her baby survive, but that he would become a messenger. And so now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given her certainty that her baby is not going to die. But he told her that after what? Telling her first, suckle him. Because that's her business right now. As for what Allah is going to do, He'll take care of that. Now we also want to add to that there's another statement in another surah. It says, he said, "O my son, do not relate your vision to your brothers," or your dream should be to your brothers, "for they will contrive against you a plan. Indeed, the shaitan to man is a manifest enemy." Who said that? Yusuf's father, Yaqub. Yaqub said that to Yusuf. He said, don't tell your brothers about your dream. What was his dream? That the stars and the sun and the moon were all going to bow down to him, showing that he was going to be someone great in the future. Because of that promise and because of that dream, even when the brothers came back and told Yaqub that Yusuf had been killed, what was one of the reasons that he never lost hope? Right, and because he remembers the dream. He remembered the dream. He was going to be someone great. He can't be someone great if he's already dead. He's already dead. So the fact that he had that dream and narrated that dream to him was an assurance to him that his son was still alive, even after all of those years. because he had already been given that glad tidings of being a prophet. And the same thing happened with Ibrahim alayhi salam. In Surah Hud, chapter number 11 of the Quran, when the angels give him glad tidings, Allah says, فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِإِسْحَاقَ. We gave him glad tidings of Ishaq. وَمِنْ وَرَاءِ إِسْحَاقَ يَعْقُوب. And after Ishaq, he was going to have Yaqub. Yani he was going to see his grandson Yaqub in his lifetime. What does that mean? That means that Ishaq could not have been who? He could not have been the one that Ibrahim was commanded to slaughter. Ishaq could not have been the one that Ibrahim was commanded to slaughter. Why? Because when he was given glad tidings of Ishaq, he was also given glad tidings of his grandson from Ishaq, Yaqub. So how is my son going to die if you've already told me that I'm going to have a grandson from him? How am I going to be commanded to kill him or believe that you really want me to kill him if you already told me that I'm going to have a grandson by him? That's evidence that Ishaq was not the one that Ibrahim was commanded to slaughter. It was Ismail, because he didn't have a promise of offspring and grandchildren like that for Ismail. Yeah, that's one of the evidence that the scholars of Tafsir mentioned as to why Ismail alayhi salam was the one that was tested with being slaughtered, and not Ishaq, because there was the promise of a grandson to come after, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Right. How did the mother herself seek to protect Musa? She put him in the She put him in the river, but she told her daughter to do what? Follow him, watch him. Right. If Allah told her, I'm going to bring him back to you, don't be worried, don't be afraid. By her sending her daughter, his sister, to go watch him, does that negate her belief in Qadr? Why? Right, so she's been told that you're going to be, so why are you sending the daughter? You don't believe me? Why? Why doesn't it negate her belief? Yeah. He's like, you don't believe me. Yamakallah. Right. Absolutely. Taking precaution or following natural causes. By natural causes, we mean how things normally work. Following natural causes does not negate one's belief in Qadr. Do you believe that if you get sick, Allah will heal you? So you don't need to go to the doctor then, right? So you go to the doctor. You take medicine. You still believe that Allah heals you. And He will heal you through medicine and doctors. So you can still take the means and you put your trust in Allah. You don't believe that the medicine cures me or that the doctor cured me. You believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cured me through the doctor. You want to have children. You go to the masjid and just stay in the corner all day and all night. I want children. I want children. Is that how it works? No. You have to do what? You have to get married. I'm hungry, Allah. Feed me. Feed me. Food. What do you have to do? You have to work. You have to eat. You have to earn a living. Following natural causes does not negate Qadr. And so even though Allah said He's going to take care of him, yes, just like I need to suckle him, I still do my part in whatever I can do to protect my child. Whatever I can do. But it's still in Allah's hands. And this is something that was also understood by the prophets. And He said, "O my sons, Do not enter one gate, but enter many different gates. And I cannot avail you against Allah at all. The decision is only for Allah. Upon him I have relied, and let those who are going to depend upon anyone put their full trust in him. Who said that? Yaqub again. So this is another thing that came out of this. Between the story of Musa alayhi salam, that early story, and between the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, there are lots of parallels. Lots of parallels. Okay, but here, what does Yaqub tell his sons to do? Go through different gates. Why? Not so they won't be recognized, so they don't get the evil eye. People are going to see 12 or 10 young, handsome men all together and be envious. And so that they don't get affected by people, go through different gates. If Allah wants them to be affected or harmed or wants people to envy them or be jealous of them, He can't stop it. But I'm still taking precautions. And so taking precautions, this is a prophet, a man of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He understood that taking precautions does not negate one's belief in al-qadr, that we still follow the natural causes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has established, and we put our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب. Sadness, grief, and qadr. Sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees something. And what He decrees can be difficult for us to handle. It can be hard for us to process. Allah describes the situation of Musa's mother alayhi salam, and the heart of Musa's mother became empty of all else. Some of the scholars' tafsir means that she forgot that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had promised to take care of him and could only focus on the fact that my baby's gone down the river and I don't know what's going to happen to him. Other scholars of tafsir mention that the idea was that she could only think about him and was just stressed thinking about him and about him not being close to her. She was about to disclose the matter concerning him, and she was about to tell the people that that's her son. She almost blew it, right? Had we not bound fast her heart, that she would be of the believers. And so in this state of sadness, in this state of grief, so that she didn't do something that she would later regret, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped her stay firm. Allah mentions this in Surah Al-Taghabun. We mentioned it last time as well. وَمَا أَصَابَ مِن مُصِيبَةٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. No affliction happens except by Allah's permission. And that's the first thing that makes us feel good. We know that whatever happens, Allah is in control, and He is the one who has let this happen. And then He says, وَمَنْ يُؤْمِن بِاللَّهِ يَهْدِي قَلْبَهُ. Whoever believes in Allah, Allah will guide his heart. And at that moment where he's lost and he can't focus anymore and doesn't know what to do, Allah will help that individual to stay firm and not do things that will blow the situation. And so, does this grief and sadness, does this negate our belief in qadr? Is it okay to be sad and to be hurting when Allah decrees something? Absolutely, absolutely. So some people think that they have to be tough and I have to be pleased with it. Yani, I'm pleased that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed this in the sense that I know that what He's decreed is good for me, and I trust that it's good for me. But it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. And again, we have another example from Surah Yusuf alayhi salam. Again, lots of parallels. A lot of good stuff came out of this research. And he turned away from them, Yani Yaqub, and said, "Oh, my sorrow over Yusuf alayhi salam, and his eyes became white from grief. He was so sad. All of the sadness that he was holding inside. He went blind. He went blind. And that's what stress can do. Stress can paralyze you. Even temporarily. A person can have a stroke. Lots of things can happen to the human body when a person is stressed and grieving. He was grieving so much that he went blind. But look what he says. They said to him, he's already sad enough. You are the one that did this. And then look what they say to him. They said, by Allah, I swear by Allah, you will not cease remembering Yusuf until you become fatally ill or you die. And you're going to keep thinking about this boy until you get sick or you're going to die. And what kind of comfort is that? I'm already grieving. I just went blind. That's the nicest thing you have to say to me. And it's your fault. You did it. What does he say? Allahu Akbar. Allah help us and guide us to exhibit this type of character. He says, I only complain of my suffering and my grief to Allah. And I know about Allah that which you do not know. O my sons. He says, O my sons, go and find out about Yusuf and his brother. And do not despair of relief from Allah. That statement lets you know that in spite of his grief and his sadness, where his heart is. Because in that very moment of grief, he tells his sons, don't ever despair of Allah's mercy. Don't ever despair of the relief of Allah. How is he giving that advice to anyone if that's not what he feels inside? But that still doesn't take away his sadness. And we're talking about years. Years you know that your child is alive out there somewhere. And you don't know where he is. And this is the grief that he's going through. But it doesn't negate his belief in al-qadr. It doesn't negate his confidence in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, why did Allah return Musa to his mother? Why did Allah return Musa to his mother? Yeah, but what about her deserve that she get that? Faith. What did he want to, I don't want to use the word achieve, but what was to be the outcome of him returning Musa to her?
Put him in the house of Pharaoh?
To destroy the house of Pharaoh?
Put him in the house of Pharaoh. I think destroy it.
No, he came to destroy the house of Pharaoh. Yeah, he came to destroy the house of Pharaoh. Yes. To clarify what Allah told her previously. And to make her happy. To make her happy. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a part of what he does is make the people that he loves and cares about happy. And he mentions this point in both surahs, in Surah Al-Qasas and Surah Taha. So we restored him to his mother that she might be content and not grieve, so that she would be happy. And then he says in Surah Taha, so we restored you to your mother that she might be content and not grieve. So where did Musa's mother gain this honor? Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honor her so much in this way? What was special about her? She was firm in her belief. She trusted in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She's not from the group that was promised Jannah. Inshallah, she seems like, that's Asiya, which was the wife of Fir'aun. This is Musa's mother. Yeah, his natural mother. Allah knows best, but I'll begin by mentioning a maxim that a dear brother, because he's here, I won't mention his name, but he mentioned is one of the reasons why he loves Surah Al-Qasas. And What Allah tells us here is a maxim for life. It is a principle for life, for individuals and for the community. Allah says, that home of the hereafter we assign to those who do not desire exaltedness upon the earth or corruption, and the final triumph is for the righteous. Yani the hereafter, Jannah, is for people that have two main characteristics. They don't want to try to make some name for themselves, and they don't want to cause corruption. And Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, as this individual also shared with me, and I was able to find myself in the collection of Ibn Taymiyyah's tafsir, he divides people, into four categories based upon this ayah. There are all-out disbelievers who want to make a name for themselves any way possible. A name in good, a name in evil. I just want to be known. I want to be known. If I want to be known as that man on the street, I want to be known as successful or businessman or wealthy or whatever. I want to be known. I want to be famous. There are those who want fame, and they also want to cause corruption. That's one group, and they're the worst group. The second are those who, they don't want a name for themselves, but they want to cause corruption. They don't want to do what's right. But I don't want anybody to find out. I want to do my dirt, but I want to do it in secret, sneaky. Right. So that's group number 2. Group number 3, and this is a group that many Muslims fall in. We don't want to cause corruption, but we want a name for ourselves. We don't want to cause corruption. We want to be known. We want to be silent. And then group number 4. And this is the one that has the promise of Jannah. That Allah has said He has assigned Jannah to these people. They don't want to be known, and they don't want to be corrupt. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows them. And that's enough for them. Being known by Allah is enough. I don't need anybody else to know me. إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ. We only feed you for the sake of Allah. لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. We don't want any thanks. We don't want anything in return. We fear standing before Allah. And so I believe wholeheartedly that a part of what made Musa's mother special and honored is not only was she a believer, and not only did she have her trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but because she was a mother. She was a mother. When Allah talks about her, you do not know her name. And you will never know her name. The only thing you know about her is that she was what? Musa's mother. And that was sufficient as an honor for her. And that's very important. It's something we have to take note of. Because in this society, we are allowing other people to define for us what success is and what it means to be somebody. And mothers who choose to stay at home, who choose to rear their children, who choose to try to have righteous offspring in society, in today's society, are looked down upon as nobodies. You don't have a career. You don't have an important job. All you do is take care of your children. But look at the women in the Quran. And look at the products, the byproduct of women who took honor in being mothers. And look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed them with. Yani here, Musa's mother, what did Allah bless her with? In being patient with being a mother. Blessed her with 2 sons that were prophets. And everything that they did of goodness. And she was a part of that. and the goodness that they did to other people, the righteous actions. She was a part of that and was an inspiration for that. It does not say, we're not told that she fasted every day. We're not told that she prayed in the middle of the night. What we're told about her is that she was their mother. And we understand from what we see in Musa alayhi salam that she tried to be an upright mother and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as best as she could. And because of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took care of her. And if you read Surah Al-Qasas, if you read it from front to end, you will find that one of the themes of the surah is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes care of the weak. Musa as a baby, Musa's mother, Harun alayhi salam, Banu Israel. You see all of the girls in Midian and their father who could no longer go out and tend to the sheep. Allah took care of every single one of them in different ways. But she found honor in being a mother. And even when we look here in Philadelphia, I'm from California, as many of you know. And California is Hollywood. You know, everybody's trying to be something that they're not. One of the very noticeable things about Philadelphia that I can see is how the older generation, the generation, I'll say 2 generations before this one, not the parents of this generation, but the grandparents of this generation, you see that they took importance with family. And they're reaping the benefits of that. You see mothers, you see grandmothers and grandfathers now in their 80s and their 90s whose children look after them. They had many children. They had numerous children and didn't mind being mothers. And now in their old age, they have plenty of children who look after them, who come and see them, who support them, who take care of them. I know brothers in this masjid who every other night take turns with their brothers and sisters to go over their mother's house and take care of them. Where did they get that honor? And they're not even Muslim. Some of these mothers are not even Muslim. But they took concern with the upbringing of their children. And because of that, in their old age, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took care of them. What does Allah say in Surah Al-Isra? وَقُلْ رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا. Oh Allah, have mercy on them. كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. Like they took care of me when I was young. But our generation, wallahi, I'm scared. But it's not just, we blame it on the kids. What's wrong with this generation? What's happening with this generation? Are we taking the time with our children like our grandparents took care of their children? Do we honor being parents like they honored being parents? Or do we see it as something lowly and backwards? Any people in this society, Allah musta'an, would rather have a dog than have a child. They'd rather have a dog. Why? Because a dog is easier to take care of. Being a parent, especially being a mother, takes a lot of patience. A lot of patience that people don't have. But it's that patience that brings about the huge reward. Inna idam al-jaza ma idam or adam al-bala. The greatness of the reward is with the greatness of the test. Or is it that we're seeking honor? And we want to have, and many mothers are leaving the household because they want to be somebody. They want to be able to brag to someone else about what they do or what they have and don't want to be a nobody. And this is a question I can't answer for any individual. Every person has to answer it for his or herself, him or herself. Does that mean that women should not work? Does that mean that women should not get an education? No, not at all. I believe women should get an education. But I also believe a big part of that education should go towards rearing those children and making them thinkers and making them people who can carry on Islam to the next generation. Does that mean women shouldn't work? No. Alhamdulillah, we have women who have decided to leave their homes and work, but not for themselves and for honor, but for the Muslims. There are women who provide great services for Muslims. They didn't do it because they wanted to make a name for themselves. They did it because they saw a need and no one else was standing up. I don't want to embarrass the individual, but I'm going to say it because I think it's important. I hope they're not here because I don't want them to hear it, and don't tell them I said anything about them. Yeah? But Sister Khadija, I had a chance to talk with her. You know, she said that she was on the body washing committee for the Muslim here at UMM. And she kept having to go to non-Muslim funeral homes and seeing how Muslim bodies were being treated and disrespected and stacked up on top of each other and mouths glued shut. And so she and her husband talked and said, we have to do something so that the Muslims are respected and their bodies are respected. And for that reason, she opened a funeral home. For that reason. Not because she wanted fame, not because she wanted to be somebody and be known, but to help the Muslims. And so if a woman goes into the work, the labor force or whatnot, because she's trying to provide a service for the Muslims, because she's working at a school so that Muslim children can be educated and have somewhere to go and have Muslim children, have Muslim teachers. That's noble. But just to get out the house just because I don't feel like being in the home, well, we see the effects of that. We see the effects of that. And I'm not saying that, go home and start from scratch, but we have to be smart about the decisions that we make and understand the repercussions of the decisions that we make and the benefits. And know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to bless you to be honored. If you want to be honored by Him, if you want to be honored by this dunya, you are really going to be disgraced. Because when you forego marriage and forego children and raising a family, you see who's there for you at your funeral. You see how your children are when you get older and see what you have to show for it. 3 things follow an individual when he or she dies. What are they? The continuous charity, knowledge that's benefited from, and a righteous child. Wallahi, where's righteousness going to come from? Is it going to come out the sky? Is it going to come by osmosis through his pillow? Or there's someone at home teaching him how to be righteous? Yani, this is an investment. And if you don't get fame, yani, the good deeds that you get from every salat that he makes, that you taught him to make, from every wudu that he makes or she makes, from every dua that she makes or he makes, is that not enough? Is that not enough prestige? And again, lots of parallels between the story of Musa and the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. The same brother that told me about this principle from Surah Al-Qasas, he reminded me much earlier about the same thing in Surah Yusuf alayhi salam. What does Allah say? That when Yusuf brought his family into Egypt, he said, enter Egypt safely. And then he raised who? His parents. He raised who? In the whole surah, who do you hear? Who do you hear about? His father. His mother's nowhere to be seen, nowhere to be mentioned. But she's there the whole time. And when it was time to be honored, Allah made her honored. وَرَفَعَ أَبَوَيْهِ. And he raised his 2 parents and embraced his 2 parents. She was honored. And she was there the whole time, suffering and sad and grieved by the loss of her son. And Allah doesn't mention her at all. And doesn't mention her as the Yusuf, as the mother of Yusuf. A very slight mention at the end of the surah. But he honors her. and he lets you know that she has a special place with him. And this selflessness, this desiring of honor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not desiring it from the dunya, it is the very characteristic that we all need to have. And when parents have this, it affects their children. And I'm not going to put it all on the mothers. As men, we have to be better fathers. We have to be better providers. We can't settle for less where we need our wives' income to supplement the household, or that we're living lifestyles that are beyond our means. Sometimes it's not that one salary can't do, and everybody knows his own situation. Sometimes it can't, and that's the reality. But sometimes it can, and we just want stuff. And we have to decide, do we want stuff or do we want righteousness in our household? Do we want stuff or do we want good children? So it's a shared responsibility. We're not dumping it on mothers. It's mothers and fathers who have to work together. And those who have to work, both of them have to work. That's the situation of some. That we work out how we're going to spend time and how we're going to reinforce. And if we have to send them to school or send them to daycare, we don't just send them anywhere. But we try to provide the best for them. And then we have children who develop that same level of selflessness. And Musa said, he made dua. He said, "Oh, our Lord, indeed you have given Fir'aun and his establishment splendor." He made a dua. Musa made a dua. He said, and Musa said, what does Allah say after that? He says, the supplication of both of you. Who's both of you? And Harun. What did Harun do? He said, Ameen. Musa made the dua. And Allah mentions that as Musa's dua. But when he mentions answering the dua, he answered the dua for who? Both of them. Harun didn't have to be mentioned. He took the honor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him. This is the characteristics of believers. They don't have to have a name. And they don't want to cause corruption. The name and the position that they have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is efficient. And that's how we have to be. Shall I call the adhan, inshallah, and then I'll give it about 3 more minutes, and then we'll conclude. Someone call the adhan. Shall I 3 more minutes, and we'll be finishing. We'll go ahead and pray. Again, the idea is not to make any rash decisions, to change things overnight, because things don't change overnight. And people have real commitments and responsibilities, and it's not wise to make abrupt changes. The idea here is, number one, that this whole idea of putting down motherhood has to stop. And it has to stop with us. We can't tell our children, our daughters, be a business person or do this and be a nurse or a doctor, and this is the way to be successful. And that choosing to stay home and be a good mother to your children is lowly and is less important. I mean, society right now is showing us that what the effects of not having parents at home, not having mothers at home, shows you what the effects are. And people like to use Khadija radiallahu anha. Khadija was a businesswoman. Khadija was into trade. Like when the Prophet ﷺ came trembling from the mountain of Hira, and he came home, was she out in Sham doing business, or was she at home there to comfort him? And when business was done, she sent him. She sent him and her slave to do business on her behalf. And she was at home. She was a mother, even though she had a business. When her husband needed to be comforted, she was there to comfort him. And she raised their children. So the idea is not that you can't have a career, not that you can't be educated. Again, be educated. The more educated you are, the better children we will have and produce as a community. But don't put down motherhood. Don't let society dictate to you what's important. We have our own values, and we can see where their values lead. Like, And so another lesson here is the lesson as a community. This is for the community. That we have to learn to be patient in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Musa was born, and his purpose of being born, a part of that was to free Banu Israel from bondage. How long did it take for him from the time he was born to come and deliver them? At least 40 years. At least 40 years. And so that generation who was at 30 and 40 years of age, they never lived possibly to see deliverance. But Allah was always there. And so sometimes victory is not going to be achieved in your generation. And we have to stop expecting to see the world turn 180 degrees in our lifetime. We have to do the work that's necessary during our lifetime. And we might never see the results of it. And Allah's not going to question us about the results of it. He's going to question us about what we did while we were here. And what we do will affect the next generation, whether we live to see it or not. We don't have to have a name. We don't have to have a name. We don't have to see it. As long as it happens, as long as we put that infrastructure in place for change to happen, that's what's important. So we have to stop looking at trying to be the ones that change it and has to change now and everything has to change and I have to see. We don't have to see it. Because Allah's not going to ask us about the results. What is the best way to protect oneself from oppression? Okay, so it takes time for oppression to get lifted when it happens. But we want to stop oppression before it even happens. We don't want to have to wait 40 years or 100 years for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send help. We want to remain in a good situation, if at all possible. The best way to do that is to remember what Allah says. Allah does not change the situation of a people until they change themselves. He does not change the favor which He has given until they change themselves. Brothers and sisters of Philadelphia, if we don't practice Islam and command good and forbid evil, and do what He tells us to do. Right now we're comfortable. Believe me, Allah can change that comfort just as He changed it for Banu Israel. And you don't know when His relief will come after that. All this half-baked practicing of Islam has to stop. We have to practice real Islam or we're going to taste the brunt of it and our children will taste it and our grandchildren will taste it until He sends relief. Until we do what? Turn back to our religion and decide to start practicing. But don't think that just because you put a kufi on your head and a scarf on your head and walk down the street looking like a Muslim that you are safe. Allah will judge you by your actions and knows your heart and will change this good situation you have if you don't appreciate it. And so these are some of the benefits that we have from the story of Musa. A lot more could be said. But we have to stop for prayer. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His mercy, His goodness, and to help us to reflect on the Quran. Wallahi, this is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we reflect on it and look at it and learn the lessons from it, our lives can be different. If we stop trying to get our values from television and what we see in the news and what other people are doing and trying to be like the Joneses, and start trying to be Muslims, we can have a better quality of life. You may not have everything, but as society teaches us, having everything doesn't make you happy. Happiness comes from practicing your religion, from having a relationship with Allah, from having people around you who care about you, from appreciating the little things, good health, comfortable house, reliable transportation. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His help and His assistance.